All right. Welcome back to the Carolina Packers podcast, where we're gonna, or at least this video, we'll kind of go through what we are seeing the NFL future going when it comes to quarterbacks and kind of the next steps in the process before free agency that starts next month. Of course, there probably going to be some trades. Obviously, Derek Carr got let go, or got released, I should say. Aaron Rodgers trade might be possible. There might be another quarterback trade that we don't know about. Maybe the 49ers, they might believe in Brock Purdy. Because I know they're starting him. They might get rid of Trey Lance.
I think probably Trey Lance, they want him to be healthy, and one of those two they'll keep, if not both.
I would assume they do both, but yeah, you never know. But let's kind of look at the draft order and maybe possible, teams that are going to get the quarterback. All right, pulled it up. All right, so number one overall is going to be the Bears. I think they're pretty satisfied with Justin Fields.
He had
He's a great running quarterback.
A lot of improvement.
Hopefully establishes, passing, but I think they're set at quarterback for now. Maybe next year we'll talk about it again, depending on what happens this year. I think Houston, they need a quarterback. I think this is going to be a draft situation of a quarterback. I don't think they're going to trade out. I think it's easy for them, whatever quarterback's available at that point.
Yep.
Arizona, I think, again, Kyler Murray's going to get another chance. Indianapolis, I think they need a quarterback.
So I guess I'm not sure how you want to approach it. Do you want to go through who they might get with this, or just run through who needs a quarterback first?
Well, let's do the quarterbacks first, and then we'll go back and talk about it a little bit more. Seattle, I think they're going to re-sign Geno Smith.
I think both sides probably want that.
Yep, I think Jared Goff is going to come back to Lions. I think a year ago, maybe it's a different situation.
Yeah.
But I think with how he performed this year with a young team, I think they believe in him and give him another chance. See where that goes. Obviously, Raiders need another quarterback.
I don't think they draft here, though.
I don't think they draft here.
I think, if anything, this draft pick is either part of a blockbuster trade for a quarterback, or and that's only if they can't sign someone potentially on the free agent market.
Yeah. Atlanta, I think, again, you had a rookie this past year, didn't really do too well. I think they're going to ride him out. They could not. They could, maybe if something falls to them in the draft and maybe something crazy happens and no quarterback is starting to get drafted and they feel like they have a guy on their board that they like, they might trade up and get it. But
I think they have other areas in.
I think their team is just so bad that
they still have Marcus Mariota right now, right?
They have him, but they also have Ritter.
I think between the two of them, they're fine enough that they'll probably
address it next year, maybe, or whatever, as the team grows and becomes better. I get you. Carolina, obviously, I think in the need of a quarterback. I think Sam Darnold is not the quarterback of the future.
No, Carolina's an interesting spot because of where this pick falls, and I'm not entirely. I'm not sure actually what their approach is going to be. They're going to make a play. They need to make a play for a quarterback. I don't know if they will do that free agency like they've tried.
I hope they don't. Unless you can get Lamar. If I'm a fan of the Panthers, I know you are. Any quarterback that you saw in that free agency market other than Lamar, would you want your team to go after?
No, and he's probably the most natural fit for a team like the Panthers, which is so run heavy historically.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit more. Obviously, Philly, Tennessee definitely is in. Probably talks about getting another quarterback. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill's there, but he's 34. He's getting older.
Yep.
We'll see what happens there. Houston again here. Most likely is going to draft up here the quarterback. So that's a good pick for them to have for later. Jets obviously need a quarterback.
But they're not going to be able to draft it there.
They're not going to draft it there, though. They're going to need a trade or, again,
and
like we'd mentioned,
the Jets are in an odd spot where I'm not entirely sure that their team is mature enough. I mean, they did surprisingly well for that one stretch last year, and then gravity kind of kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, though, that the Jets are in a position where you say, well, they're just like one good quarterback away. Not in the same way that obviously the 49ers are a healthy quarterback away.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, I mean, again, speaking of young, the Jets had the offensive and defensive rookie of the year this year. So it's definitely young core. Coaches.
It's young core, but I guess my point with that is, so obviously there's a couple of things that would fit. If you get someone like Aaron Rodgers, I think anyone will probably take and assume that he will fit, even though he had a down year last year. 2 and 3 years ago, he was an MVP of the NFL. So I think short of that, though, they're in a position where why not get like a young quarterback potentially in the draft, but they can't draft here.
Not here.
So they would have to either trade up or either trade that pick up, or I think they're going to really push for a big splash in free agency or some other trade.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback unless it's like a top 3 person, right? And it's not going to be that at, what is that pick? 13?
Yeah, because again, as a Jets fan, I know they're pretty rowdy. You don't want to draft a quarterback that needs work or whatever at 13.
No, they did that with Sam Darnold,
and then of course Zach Wilson. Just you don't want
it needs to be an obvious shoe-in, or you at this point, or you
unless you really believe in that guy. But I think
they need someone probably young. I mean, it would make sense to get someone young, but at the same time, you want someone that's young, but 1 or 2 years of development away.
Or do you do what Houston did, and you get a quarterback last year, know that you're not going to be good, and know that you're going to get that top seed most likely, and really Davis Mills be, okay, that's our quarterback this year. Whatever happens, if he's a great rookie, oh my gosh, we found a rookie. You know, draft a quarterback if you're the Jets. Maybe draft a quarterback in the later rounds that you think maybe has it's this big guy, strong arm, decently mobile. Just has like the intangibles that you feel like you can mold. Because that, like you said, if you can't get a trade done, if you can't get a free agent that you feel good about, and you can't get the quarterback you want up in that upper echelon in the draft, you might have to get a second-tier quarterback and do what Houston did. And again, next year's draft quarterbacks has some pretty top-tier quarterbacks. So you maybe look into that and just maybe, a rookie that we drafted in the 3rd round or 2nd round or whatever that has the abilities, has the tangibles, maybe will work out and maybe we have the quarterback of our future. Or if not, we have a really high pick for a quarterback next year.
Cool.
It's something to think about. New England, Mac Jones, I think they're not going to do anything. Again, it's similar to the Jets. At 14, it's hard to say we're going to get a quarterback that we want. Washington, again, the same situation. I think they need a quarterback. I think they need it bad.
Yep.
And again, same situation as
Washington,
the Jets.
Pittsburgh. So I think
Pittsburgh might think Pickett is their guy for the future.
Possibly. We'll see. So I think at this point, none of these teams are probably going to draft a quarterback with these picks. So let's take a look at free agency, and I've also got pulled up here just like a list of the teams, and we were looking through this a little bit before. There's a handful of teams that need a good quarterback and are sort of your quarterback away. Some of them might actually already have their problem solved within their own organization. So I think one of the big question marks, of course, well, two of the big question marks, and for the same reason, are the Miami Dolphins and the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
They're both teams where they're a quarterback away, make or break, and the question is that quarterback the one they hoped it would be 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
The Dolphins, Tua, the concussions and all that were scary.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if he's healthy, he is a great quarterback for them.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that they want. Just those injuries were so tragic, I would say, almost, and just the concussions it's the kind of injury that builds more and more.
Yeah.
You become more and more
That's the worst part about it, because again, Tua coming out of Alabama, you're like, oh, this is a shoe-in, great
Mm-hmm.
quarterback for the future. Dolphins, especially when the Dolphins made those trades this year, like they were looking really good this year.
Yeah.
Again, they always were in the race and everything. And then, of course, you look at a perfect example is what happened in their wild card playoff game
Mm-hmm.
when they were again putting in quarterbacks that were just terrible.
Yeah.
But really, I'm pretty sure it was against the Bills.
Uh-huh.
They put up a really good fight and
Yeah.
showed that the core is really good.
Their team is excellent.
Their team is excellent, and like you said, they're a quarterback away. And so you wish, again, injuries aside, like you wish you could seen Tua in that game, because that Tua probably wins that game.
So I would say the Dolphins are, yes, probably. It depends if Tua plays. If Tua plays again, another season, they'll keep him. I think.
Yeah,
I
I think
he would
they're
want to stay. But
Mhm.
I also think that the Dolphins need to make a move to try to pick up someone. So, for instance, I believe in the free agency, but then also just as options, right now, from the other team that we were talking about, the 49ers, they have 3 quarterbacks.
Yep.
Everyone's talking about how Jimmy Garoppolo is going to go. I think Brock Purdy surprised everyone and
Mhm.
played surprisingly solid. And Trey Lance, I think, for good reason, they believe will be their quarterback of the
Yeah.
future. They'll probably keep those 2 guys and try to trade Jimmy Garoppolo away somewhere. I actually think that if you're the Dolphins and you want Tua to be your guy, but also seeing how Teddy Bridgewater, who has had injuries in the past, is not always super reliable for that, though that was bad luck, I guess you could say. You're probably looking for another person that's just solid. Jimmy Garoppolo does fall into that solid category, though he is injury prone.
Yeah.
So he would maybe not be a good fit. But I'm also thinking of like, and it's so bad now I'm blanking, at the Browns. Who is
Deshaun Watson,
No.
Jacoby Brissett.
Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is the perfect backup quarterback for a team like the Dolphins.
Speaking of,
Right. So, or Andy Dalton is another guy I was thinking of, where a team may not be interested in him as a starter, but they're so good. It would be good to just have someone with experience who's won games and doesn't turn over the ball a ton. Both of those people, I think, would be great fits with a team like the Dolphins. Which I think one of them at least. Oh, are they both
these
free
are
agents?
yeah. So this is a list of the free agents outside the top 5 that you see, with Jimmy Garoppolo, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, and obviously Lamar Jackson. This is the list of just free agents that didn't make the cut or whatever. Obviously, you have some second tier, I'd say, with Cooper Rush. Obviously, Cooper Rush did do well with the Cowboys,
Did do well.
so he probably signs back there. But Sam Darnold is a free agent.
Yeah.
I did not know that he was a free agent. And you can see some of these ages of quarterbacks. Obviously, Andy Dalton, Case Keenum are the 2 that kind of catch your eyes just because they've done things in the league. Jacoby Brissett has always been a very solid backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Did well with the Browns this year as their starter for a while. You have, obviously, Taylor Heineke did well with the Commanders. I assume they probably want him back as a backup. Teddy Bridgewater, again, like you were discussing, probably returns to the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
we'll have
think
to see with that.
they probably put out some money to either keep Teddy Bridgewater or get Jacoby Brissett or Andy Dalton. Someone like that, I imagine, would be prime for the Dolphins. And then I don't think the 49ers do anything except move on from Jimmy Garoppolo.
It would, you know, be interesting.
If they
This
keep
would
all
be
three.
crazy. Is they move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, sign Lamar Jackson, and trade away Trey Lance.
That would be crazy.
Get some of the capital back for Christian McCaffrey. Get some of that back. You know, get Trey Lance out. Maybe, and at this point, teams might believe again. If you're a team that's looking for a quarterback, like maybe the Tennessee Titans or the Raiders or someone like that, that's like, you know, we kind of want to develop a quarterback.
So
you look at Trey Lance, and then all of a sudden you're the 49ers and your team's ridiculous.
Trey Lance, though, I believe, was doing good.
Yeah, he was.
49ers. I don't think Lamar Jackson actually helps the 49ers too much, just because he's so run heavy.
But that's the team,
right?
So but if you lean into that scheme,
but you can only run the ball so many times. They have some really good receivers too, and that's his weak.
But again, the quarterbacks that they've had have never been amazing passers. They've never been good passers, right? And they've gone so far in all of the games.
I would say Jimmy Garoppolo is a better passer than Lamar Jackson.
You might be right, but but they drafted Trey Lance, which again isn't really that good of a passer, more of a runner, right? Mm-hmm. You get Brock Purdy. I think that was just that was just on a whim, last pick of the draft, whatever. But if you the thing about the free agent quarterbacks this year, a lot of them are most likely returning to the teams they were on. Like Seahawks most likely getting Geno Smith back, Daniel Jones to the Giants.
Yep.
I would assume obviously the top two aren't going to happen, but a lot of these extra quarterbacks down here are most likely going to return to the team. I would assume Jacoby Brissett, maybe a team does it, but Gardner Minshew is probably not going to go anywhere crazy. Taylor Heineke, maybe Baker Mayfield stays with the Rams. Obviously, these lower tier backup quarterbacks most likely stay as well. It's one of those situations where I don't know if there's a big pizzazz this year in free agency outside of Lamar Jackson. And
I'm skeptical that the 49ers.
No, I was just I'm not being serious about that. I was just thinking like that would be crazy if that happened.
Yeah, it would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
I don't, from a team construction standpoint and a money standpoint.
Yeah,
I don't
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to
No,
happen. Because
I think
he's going to demand a huge salary, and he will need to go to a place probably where he is the offense.
Yeah,
and that's going to be the kind of place that wants him. Where
I
they've
think
got
it
a
would be
couple of
fun.
pieces.
I think it would be fun with him, Josh Jacobs, and obviously Devontae Adams out there and with the Raiders. I think it'll be interesting if he maybe signs with the Dolphins. I don't know. Again, don't know about Tua's situation. They might believe in Tua, and that might just be too much with all of the moves that they've made. I think Lamar will I think the first piece of the puzzle is Aaron Rodgers.
Once that's figured out, a lot of stuff will fall into place.
Yep, exactly. I think Aaron Rodgers wants to get traded. He gets traded, and most likely probably the Jets or the Raiders will probably get Aaron Rodgers if he gets traded. Again, we don't know for sure, but I would assume it's one of those two teams. Maybe the Colts.
So I would say, from a team construction standpoint, the most natural places for Aaron Rodgers would be the Raiders.
Yep.
First, and I'm just saying team construction, not thinking about conference necessarily. I think best fit, the Raiders are a clear one. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is another team that might be interested in more of a pass. I mean, they're a passing offense, right? And despite just talking about them, and I'm not sure if they could swing it, but if the opportunity came, I actually think that the 49ers would make a move on Aaron Rodgers.
They're not going to make a move on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to go there.
No, he may. Well,
he's not going to go there, and we're not going to trade there. I think that's probably the least likely landing spot is the 49ers, because just obviously, I don't know if you've seen the clip, but at the golf match or whatever, people were talking to him about it, and he said anywhere but the 49ers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think
well, if he I know nothing about that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying from a team construction standpoint, that would be a place that would make sense for him.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to go there, they're not going to trade.
No. They would have to trade a lot in order to get him, and they just traded a lot for Christian McCaffrey.
I don't know how much they would have to trade, actually, because everyone knows the Packers don't want him.
But the Packers have said they want him. I think it's not the fact that they don't want him. I think it's the fact that they don't want the 49ers to have him. I think that's why it would have to cost a lot for the 49ers. Because there's other teams. If the 49ers was the only team that were wanting him, then yeah, that might be a different story. But with the Jets, with the teams that I was talking about, because the Jets have the offensive coordinators that the Packers used to have. Obviously the Raiders, Devontae Adams, and have want him. And then I think the Colts, and then maybe even Tennessee.
The Raiders is, I think, for a lot of reasons, the obvious landing spot, right? That would be the obvious landing spot. They have, let's see, the seventh
pick.
So I really think that if they're willing to package that 7th pick, Aaron Rodgers probably wants to play with Devontae Adams again. I think, not that you would like this, but it's possible that they try to do like, well, I guess I don't know how that works. Are there sign-in trades?
With
sort
what?
Of thing? I'm not sure if they would try to sign and trade away Derek Carr with that pick for Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, Derek Carr's not on the team anymore.
Yeah.
So Derek Carr, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You really can't do that.
Really. I know the NBA does that. I guess I don't know how that works.
Yeah, so the NFL, Derek Carr wouldn't. The Packers would just sign him off the street if they wanted to. But again, we'll probably do a separate video on Aaron Rodgers. But I think going back through the teams, obviously Houston's going to draft. I think again with Indy, if they can't get a top tier quarterback, in either free agency or trading, they're going to trade up to number 1. I think with the position they're in, unless a trade really makes sense, or Lamar Jackson falls into their lap, or again, if you're the Colts in this situation at 4, if a trade with Aaron Rodgers or someone top tier is not a lot, like they're not asking for a lot because you're on the other side of the conference, whatever that may be, then yes, I take the risk. Or if one of the top free agent quarterbacks say, "Oh, I'll take a pay cut to come there," that makes sense.
Let's play this hypothetical out, right?
Okay.
Let's say I think the most likely thing happens, and I could be wrong, but I really, it makes the most sense to me from a want on both sides that Aaron Rodgers goes to a place like the Raiders.
Okay.
He could potentially go to the Jets. I would just think that going to the Jets they're young. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers necessarily wants to be that bridge in developing a whole bunch of guys. I think Aaron Rodgers maybe wants to be on a team where he goes and just plays. Yeah. Right? So the Jets... Maybe the Jets are above, but the Raiders have a lot to offer. I mean, they've got a great run game, great pass game, and I think they have a pick in the capability of getting him, potentially even more so than the Jets, because they would have to possibly trade away a lot of draft capital or some of their budding players. So I think let's say Aaron Rodgers goes there. That would then, and then let's say that the 49ers resolve their problem. They say we're staying with Trey Lance. I think that's likely.
I think that's likely. I think that's what's going to happen.
I also think that the Dolphins maybe just sign one of those guys we were looking at, and they stick with Tua, so they've got Jacoby Brissett or Dalton or someone like that in Tua. So that really leaves then the New York Jets, the Carolina Panthers, the Indianapolis Colts, the Houston Texans, the Washington Commanders. Some of these we can resolve right away. The Texans, I think, draft.
I think the
Texans, I think, are in no position to try to make a splash in free agency.
I think. All right. So from what I've heard, the Jets are either getting Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr. From what's happened around, like what people are saying, Derek Carr had a really great interview with the Jets. And the Jets pretty much are waiting on Aaron Rodgers to see his decision. If that doesn't happen, they're going to go with Derek Carr.
So let's say that Derek Carr then, that makes sense to me too, because he's the kind of, for some reason in my mind, fits their scheme well. He's not like a big runner, but they've got those two good running backs, three maybe. They've got a whole bunch that are great when they're healthy. Yeah. So they don't need a guy that runs all the time. So let's say he signs there. So now the Jets are out. They've got Derek Carr, and they hope that he has his comeback season, and that was just a problem with the Raiders. So then that really leaves and then let's say that Daniel Jones and Geno Smith both re-sign. I think that makes the most sense. They had a better than expected year, but not enough for some of these teams to make a big, big splash. That leaves Lamar Jackson, unaccounted for. And teams that would be interested. So we had also said, as far as teams that it's tough to tell what they would do, because there's always the possibility, of course, that a huge trade happens that we don't expect. Yeah. And we went through a couple of those before we went live. The Lions are probably going to stick with Jared Goff. And obviously, the teams that made the deep runs, the Bills, are probably going to stay. The one that would be a huge surprise, but you can never know, is like, do the Cowboys stay with Dak Prescott? Yeah. I think probably. I would assume
they do. But with how many times they've given, Dak Prescott a chance. Again, it's hard to say because they went to the division round of the playoffs that they're going to move on from their quarterback.
Right.
Like you would expect all of these teams that went to the divisional round or even the wild card pretty much going to stick with their quarterback. Obviously, Baltimore is getting rid of theirs and Tampa Bay doesn't have one anymore.
Right. And so the other one that I thought until the news came out that implies the contrary, I thought, well, maybe the Broncos are going to cut their losses and say we're going to try to package Russell Wilson. Obviously, that's not the case.
Yeah, they're going all out.
At this point, the only teams that really are in a position to look for a guy like Lamar Jackson, I think of course, the Ravens are an option. They could re-sign him, but I don't think they're going to. He hasn't been good enough for them. They haven't really built around him in a way that makes sense. I don't think they know what to do with him on a team. So it's possible. I mean, you don't know. The Steelers might try to pick him up. It depends how confident they feel about Kenny Pickett.
I think they're gonna stick with Kenny Pickett. I think the biggest one is probably Washington or Tampa Bay.
So Washington is a team that is a quarterback away in a lot of ways.
And I think Lamar would fit really well with Washington.
Washington, I think, would be in a position...
Because if you're Washington, you're 16th in the draft. You're not going to get a top-tier quarterback. You want to get a free agent or trade for someone. Not really many quarterbacks are going to most likely get traded this year. So you're probably talking about a free agent, and there's not many other than outside of Lamar that really fit. And Washington would really do well with Lamar, right?
Yep.
I think that makes sense. I think Tampa Bay getting Jimmy G would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Or Baltimore getting Jimmy G makes a lot of sense. I think those two would get Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't see Indianapolis or Houston or maybe Carolina getting Jimmy Garoppolo.
And again, they went for Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. So I don't know. I mean, they might try to get Jimmy Garoppolo. My thought would be, if you're the Panthers at this point and you've got the 9th draft pick, your options, especially with a young team that has shown a lot of potential, and you want them to be good in 1 to 2 years, 2 max from this point. I think that they're really in a position where you try to sign Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
And if you don't, you try to trade up a couple of spots with them in draft. Yep. Maybe they will try to get Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that would just be another era of mediocrity. I don't think the team is necessarily built for his play style, right? He's more of a system quarterback. We have a lot of talent. We don't have much of a system to speak of, and it's a lot of young guys, and he's injury prone. And so we don't have any backup to speak of. We're not, I think, going to re-sign Sam Darnold.
You might. I don't know where Sam Darnold.
We'll
Sam
see who
Darnold
we can
might
get.
Yeah.
But I think that if you can't get Lamar Jackson, you try to draft the best quarterback you can in that top couple.
It's really weird. I feel like this year there's a lot more teams that are in need of quarterbacks, and not a lot of quarterbacks that are going around.
So the weird ones right now, the Colts. I think they traded away Hines. I think they maybe the writing is increasingly on the wall that they need to maybe do a rebuild.
Yeah, I don't think they are with the 4th overall pick. I don't think they're getting a quarterback. No. I think either them or Houston. Again, if something falls in their lap that like Aaron Rodgers or Green Bay calls Indy or Houston and says, hey, we'll give you Aaron Rodgers for a 2nd-round pick. I think obviously you jump on that opportunity, but or if Lamar comes out and says, hey, for you guys, I'll take a pay cut. I don't or Jimmy G, one of those like upper tier, I guess, quarterbacks comes in like to you and says, hey, I'll take a pay cut or less draft picks for you to be getting these quarterbacks. That has to happen. If that doesn't happen, Houston and Indy have the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft at that point.
And you can only be a quarterback away for so many years before you're no longer a quarterback away.
Yeah.
And I think when the Colts signed Phillip Rivers, that was the year.
That was the year.
Maybe the next year when they signed Carson Wentz. I think this last year, I mean, it was tough for the program when Andrew Luck retired.
Yeah.
I mean, they clearly had set it up. He was going to be their guy. And he was going to be the future of the franchise. I think they're in a position where they've got a couple of good pieces.
Oh, yeah.
That they should rebuild.
They have really good pieces on the team. If they can, like you said, if they can
build around it
and develop a quarterback, because they're young. Like, they're still young.
Exactly. So now would be the time maybe to either try to get someone in the draft. I actually think they should draft a quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. I think them in Houston with their draft position make way too much sense to draft the quarterback.
Are in an
Titans
odd
are
spot.
a very odd spot as well.
They had a subpar lower half of average season in a non-exceptional division. They went 7-10. I think Ryan Tannehill is. They might
old, and they might give him another run, especially because
sign him, but I don't think he can be the future.
And I think that's the thing, right? Is something like that. I think Tennessee may not make any quarterback changes this year, and maybe ride out Tannehill. And again, same with Atlanta as well. Same with Arizona. Same with a couple of these teams that don't have the best quarterback, like New England or whatever. Some of these teams that have an okay quarterback that could get the job done, just kind of want to develop players around them on a young team. And that way next year, when the draft class for quarterbacks is that much better, and maybe free agency has quarterbacks as well next year, better quarterbacks in free agency, that those teams that got older as in everything else around them and have the team built for a young quarterback to come in and thrive. I think, like you said, Tennessee's a team. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill had a down year, but at 34, he's around that age of, okay, what's the future? So I think like I said, those teams I listed may not go for a quarterback this year. May again at the 11th spot with Tennessee. Maybe you get a really good piece that you can build around, and then go from there. But
because if I'm the GM of Tennessee right now and I'm looking at my team construction, they're in a tough spot, and it's unfortunate, I think, because right now their best piece is their running back, Derrick Henry, offensively. And the number one feature of the best quarterback on free agency right now is his running. They maybe would be a team that would try to get someone like Aaron Rodgers, but I also think even if Aaron Rodgers went to a team like that, they've got Robert Woods is there, but Robert Woods is 30.
Yeah.
Right? Austin Hooper is there, but Austin Hooper is 28. Right? Like they're getting old and they don't have much of a defense to speak of. I think that it's in that uncomfortable spot where if you're the GM, you say, okay, Derrick Henry is still healthy and he had some really good seasons. Let me do what the Packers should have done and read the writing on the wall, and I'm going to trade him now and not pull whatever they did with Christian McCaffrey, where they could have traded him after a really good season and let him get hurt and had him for no reason. If you try to get someone like Jimmy Garoppolo on the Titans, it's almost a 1-for-1 with Ryan Tannehill. I don't think you're upgrading, really, right? So
that's the thing.
I think they need to rebuild.
Tennessee's, Again, I think if you're the Panthers, obviously you're a Panthers fan. I think obviously you want to make the playoffs and you like that the team did 7-10. But right now, looking at the situation, you're like, crap. We couldn't get that top tier quarterback other than if we want to trade up for him.
I think they could.
But the thing is you're talking about outside of, again, Bryce Young, great quarterback from Alabama, is small. Is like 5'10", maybe, 170, 80 pounds or whatever. Very injury prone, very interesting. Obviously, you have Will Levis from Kentucky and how he is the perfect, like, quarterback size, arm strength, blah, 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 but also went to Kentucky and didn't do well this past year. Was expecting big things this year from him, and kind of weird that he didn't do well, obviously, and then also didn't do, like, the pro days or anything like that, and it kind of gives you bad feeling with him. Obviously, out of Ohio State, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but that's the quarterback that, again, people are kind of pushing to third in the quarterback quarterback rankings. So, again, even though you have these picks that you want to go up and get a quarterback in the top tier, obviously you have Alabama, Bryce Young, and obviously Will Levis, great quarterback players, but are they going to really turn out to be the amazing players that they have? And that's why it's so interesting to see what the Panthers actually do this year, because outside of those top couple guys, even those top couple guys aren't really like Trevor Lawrence. They are going to be amazing quarterbacks. This is the shoe-in first overall pick. Again, Justin Fields, shoe-in, great pick. Joe Burrow, great pick. Yep. All these guys that have been recently have been, okay, they're going to get picked. They look good. You have these guys the guy out of Florida. You have these quarterbacks that, could do really well, but also aren't perfect. So it'll be interesting to see what these teams like Vegas, Carolina, these teams outside that top 5, top 6 picks do.
I think the Panthers are going to be one of the most... obviously the Buccaneers are going to be interested in any good player that they can get. But they're also in an odd spot where they're getting older too. Mike Evans is not young. Chris Godwin. I'm not sure what they do. I could see them actually trying to get Jimmy Garoppolo. I think one of the we haven't talked about it. Maybe one of the odd natural spots though for Jimmy Garoppolo would be to actually go to the Patriots.
That's what I was thinking.
Again, because we know Bill Belichick liked him. His best years were in that system. They're not really sure with Mac Jones. And Jimmy Garoppolo has kind of injury-prone history, and Mac Jones has been good enough. They might go, well, let's try Jimmy, and if it doesn't work, well, Mac Jones will still have. I think the NFC South, every team needs a quarterback. The Saints are an odd spot too, where
they're not going to get a quarterback this year.
No, they're getting older, but they might want to just try what they have. And
with Winston, James Winston, or whatever.
The Falcons, I think, again,
Ritter. I think they're going to wait on a quarterback this year again.
So in a lot of ways, the teams that like the Panthers, they've got talent, and I think that they will probably try to make a pretty big offer or attempt. I would be shocked if they don't try to get Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Now, as far as Lamar Jackson's decision making, one thing the Panthers can potentially bring to the table is that they have some experience with run style quarterbacks with Cam Newton. The big downside, of course, for them is that the other team that will probably push the hardest for Lamar Jackson as a natural landing spot will be the Washington Commanders, who obviously have Ron Rivera, who was Cam Newton's coach and has proven himself, I think, significantly more, factually more.
Yeah.
So as far as a coaching situation goes and a need goes, right now Washington, I think,
I feel like it's
the
such a
most
good
sense.
pick.
And so it comes down to if Lamar Jackson sees it that way, you never know what goes into his head. But I imagine also that they have the cap space, right? They're not loaded with huge veterans at this point. They, I think, have the best offer to make. And so I would really, that's kind of how I see it playing out. Is he probably goes to Washington. I think Rodgers, if he goes, probably is traded to the Raiders.
Well, either Rodgers or Love is getting traded.
One of them is, and
one
I
of them is going to get
it'll
traded
be
this
Rodgers.
Year. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I have no clue what's going to happen, but
and
I
then
think
Carr probably to the Jets.
Yeah.
And then we see some of these teams, the Colts go for the draft. I don't know what the Titans do. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, tough to say. I think the Patriots will try to get him back.
I think it'll be interesting because really, if you're Lamar Jackson, you, outside of maybe one or two teams with whoever Aaron Rodgers goes to, you really have your pick of wherever you want to go. Because there's really no teams or no other quarterbacks that are as good as you, even close. Because really, there is a huge gap between you and the next person on the free agency list. Like, especially with the ages of all these quarterbacks. Obviously, Daniel Jones is 26. I'm pretty sure the same age as Lamar Jackson.
Right.
But most likely, he's going back to the Giants. So really, outside of Daniel Jones or whatever, everybody's over 30. So you have at least 4 years on all of them.
Yep.
And you're arguably very much a lot better than they are. So it's like it'll be very interesting to see.
He is by far the biggest talent. I think what complicates it is that he's the biggest talent in a surprisingly limited free agency class, but he also comes with the caveat that you almost have to build your entire offensive scheme around him. You do have to build it around him. And that has a lot of advantages, but he doesn't plug in to any scheme you want as well as maybe as obviously as Aaron Rodgers would, right? And so that either will give a lot more teams maybe pause, or but of course I think the Commanders would be the perfect scheme for him. They don't have even a great, well maybe they do. Who's their best running back? Gibson, and I mean they have Robinson. Robinson did well last year too. Right. Yeah.
So they have a really good team. Like, they have a really good, maybe add another wide receiver or whatever, get a tight end to help them out. But, again, they are a great defense. great running game, good offensive lineman. Like they are a quarterback away, and maybe, like I said, maybe a wide receiver away from a really good team.
But they don't. They have good running backs, but they still have more of the committee system.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes more sense for Lamar Jackson than a place like. I mean, obviously they're not trading or trying to get him, but a place that has like Dalvin Cook, for instance. If you have Dalvin Cook, if you have Derrick Henry, if you have Christian McCaffrey even on your team, right? Those are the people that will always be running the ball, and it's almost a waste to have a talent like that you don't always run first. And Lamar Jackson, he's going to run 50% of the time. Yeah. And so you want a committee kind of thing.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Any other final thoughts?
I think that's it.
Awesome. We'll do more videos about this. Obviously, nothing has even started other than the fact that Derek Carr got released. This is very early on. We'll talk about this more as things develop, and obviously Aaron Rodgers, and then of course the start of free agency and everything in March. But yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. See you next time.